I have to tell you a little something here that's just reminded me of a story. Two things have reminded me. First of all, I understand that many of you heard me last night. Then I happen to hear that a great many of you heard me on television just a little while ago. And the other thing is that when two gentlemen came in here, that left me backstage with their wives. And that also helped remind me of the story. But the fact that you heard me twice also, it happens to be a story of an older preacher who was talking to a young preacher who hadn't had as much experience, and he said to him, you know, sometimes on Sunday morning they begin to nod off. And he says, I found a way to wake them up. He says, right in my sermon, when I see them beginning to doze, I say, last night I held in my arms a woman who was the wife of another man. And he said, that wakes them up. And he says, then when they look at me startled, I say, it was my dear mother. Well, the young preacher took that to heart, and a few weeks later, sure enough, there, some of them were dozing off. So he remembered what had been told him, and he said, last night I held in my arms a woman who was the wife of another man. And they all looked at him, and everyone was awake. And he says, I can't remember who it was. But it's wonderful to be here with all of you in Georgia. It wasn't that long ago, yes, when the South was a stronghold for the Democratic Party. But from the spirit I sense here, those days are long gone. Today it's the Republican Party that reflects the progress and the vibrance of the New South. And I think, having been a Democrat myself, as I'm sure many of you were also, and made the change, and you know what it is like to make that change. But I think that many of us look back, I know I do, and say, did I really change? Or was it that the party of my father and the party that I had belonged to, it changed? It no longer stood for the things that it had stood for so many years. I once, as a new Republican, tried to talk the Republican Party into using the 1932 Democratic platform. It called for a 25% reduction in government spending, a return to the states and local communities' autonomy that had been confiscated by the federal government, a reduction and elimination of useless boards and bureaus and departments in government. And I thought, that's still a brand new platform. At least they've never used it. Voting Republican isn't half bad. As I told you, I know how hard it is to make that first move, but it wasn't me or it wasn't you who have made the same change that moved. As I say, the party moved. Now, once Democratic candidates encouraged people to work for the country. I remember, as a matter of fact, a young president at his inaugural who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And within a matter of weeks, they had introduced 29 new spending programs of what the country could do for the people. Today, we see candidates who are trying to buy support by telling people what the country will do for them and making promises to interest groups. Just a while ago, there was a debate up in New Hampshire. There were so many candidates on the platform, there weren't enough promises to go around. But I just don't believe that people can be bought with promises anymore that have to be paid for out of the Treasury. They know who eventually ends up paying for all of those promises. I feel sorry for some of those Democratic congressmen, though, at the same time. Can you imagine what it must be like, worn out after a day at the office? They go home, they try to go to sleep, and the first thing you know, they're having nightmares that the money they're spending is their own. Calvin Coolidge once said that patriotism is easy to understand in America. It means looking out for yourself by looking out for the country. Well, the Republican message to voters this year is just that. When we vote, we should do it for America. When we choose an election day, we should think of the future of our children. It'll require hard work on our part. We have to get our message out, and that isn't so easy in America. There just does seem to be more attention paid to things other than what we have to say.